Hi everyone, this is Maria Clark and welcome to my studio. Today we have a fun project for a tassel pendant. I hope you enjoy this project. Let's get started. Here are two samples for the projects that we'll be making today, and you can see that we'll do the first part, which is the pendant base, and then the tassel. And there are lots of options for colors with this, so you can use whatever colors make you happy. I'm going to use a plastic pen, and often polymer clay artists cover pens with sheets of clay, and this is just one of the types of pens that they'd use. This happens to be a Papermate pen from Target, and they're about maybe 10 cents a piece. We'll remove the ink barrel, and then we will take out the end piece, and we've got a nice plastic core that we can use for our pendants. I'll go ahead and measure out 2 inches, and I'm going to use an old blade here, an old just clay blade that I don't really use for precision cutting, and I'm going to cut down. You could use a razor blade as well, and I'll just rock that back and forth until I cut through it. And it's going to spin out of control here in just a minute, so be sure when you do this you have a little backstop there so you can find the piece. You can also make your own core out of polymer clay, and I'll show you how to do that at the end, so stay tuned for that. And here's our 2-inch core. I've prepared a sheet of clay, and I'm using a fuchsia color here, and I'm spritzing it with a little bit of water because I'm going to take one of these texture sheets. These I really love. These are actually embossing folders that the paper craft artists use. These happen to be from Doris, and they're on sale. They're generally pretty inexpensive to purchase, and I love the pattern on this one. So we'll go ahead and place it on the clay, and I'm going to use the end of my acrylic rod to really put a lot of pressure on the texture sheet so that I can get a deep impression. You can see that I've got a nice impression here, and what you can do if you prefer to is use some pearlescent powders or something that you like to color the clay and to show up the contrast. I'm going to do something at the end with this. So we'll take our sheet of clay and our pen core, and we'll go ahead and cut this to size. So I'll cut off a little bit, and then I'm going to bevel one edge at a 45-degree angle towards me, and then I'll just refine that and cut that a little bit more so that it's a little bit more sized correctly. And then I'm going to roll that clay up over the barrel, and I'm going to roll it forward until it meets the inside of the clay, and it's going to leave a little mark that's going to help guide me as to where the next cut should be. When I roll that back, you can see a little bit of a mark there. And now I'm going to angle the blade away from me. So essentially what you're getting is 2 beveled edges that are going to overlap, and that's going to help you form a nice seam. And you'll see that I'm just gently pressing those together and then refining the edge and kind of fussing with that seam a little bit. I'm going to use a little tool, an old knitting needle that I'm going to use in just a minute here to help me add some of that texture back. And here I'm just cleaning up the edges a little bit and still fussing with it. So here's the needle tool. This is a knitting needle, and I'm just going to follow the pattern around over the seam, and it helps hide the seam. So I'll just continue to do that, and you'll see I'm just using the needle tool to make some additional marks. This happens to be a graphic pattern, so it's easy to do. Otherwise, you just carefully blend it, and it'll be to the back of the pen anyway, so it's not going to interfere with the look. You can see that on this sample piece I did, I've got some end caps and a little piece at the bottom. I happen to be using a piece of extruded clay. This is just one of the small ribbons from the extruded clay, but you could easily cut this from a sheet of clay to this size. This is maybe like 1/8 of an inch. I'll bevel that edge again because I like to have a little bit, it makes it a little bit easier when you're blending the seams if you've beveled it. And I'm going to apply this half on the clay and half off because I'm going to shape it around the pendant. And then I will come back in and bevel in the opposite direction and put that seam together and start to refine that seam. What I'll do is start pushing the clay a little bit to round the edge, and I'm rounding it in towards the the core, what you want to do is make sure that you don't push too much clay into that center core so that that prevents you from bringing in the tassel at the end. So just continue to fuss that. You can see that I fuss with this quite a lot until I get it looking exactly how I like it, and I'll continue to refine that seam. I'll even move it onto my table a little bit to help round the edges and get the shape that I'm looking for. Okay, we're going to add a piece to the top, and again we'll just use the angled edge. I'm looking for the seam here so I can put the seam of the end cap piece at the same place, and we'll just wrap that around flush with the top of the pendant, and go ahead and cut that at an angle as well. You'll notice that I got a little bit of extra cut clay here, so I'll just remove that, and then we'll get a nice overlap and we can close that seam up. I'll refine the edges a little bit to round them so that they're similar to how the bottom end cap looks. And I'll just keep fussing with that until I get it to a point that I'm happy with. Once I have that completed, I'm going to create these little button tops here. There's 2 of them. And I'll take an end cap here and just put that as another decorative element on the top. I've got a snake of clay that I'm going to use, and I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch off of it and form that into a round bead that I'll then use to make the first top button. I'll place it on there and just start pressing it down and flatten it out a little bit until I like the shape. I'll take another piece, slightly less than the first one because it'll be a little bit smaller. Same thing, just roll it up into a ball. And this time we're going to measure it and just make sure that the end cap fits in well, and that I don't have too much clay that's going to overtake that little decorative piece. And I'll put that on top and start to refine that. You can just take the metal piece off and do our final refinement, just shaping that. And then we'll put the bead cap on and actually cure it with the bead cap on. It's not going to hold there permanently, but we'll use some wire to keep it on. And you can see how that looks in comparison to the sample piece. Now that I have that all put together, just do some final cleanup, and I'll go ahead and put that in a little accordion piece, and then I'll cure it at the manufacturer's recommended temperature for 30 minutes, and don't forget to cover it. Now you don't have to use one of the pen blanks as a core. You can make your own just with a wooden dowel or something else that gives you the size that you're looking for. I bevel the edge of that piece of clay and I'll roll it up around the dowel. One thing about the dowel is I do cure those first in the oven just to make sure that they aren't going to split or anything like that. And then I'll just keep rolling that around, beveling the edges to overlap them, and you see I have to cut a little bit of extra off of that last one. And we'll just roll that up, and then we can refine the edges, and we'll cure that for about 30 minutes, and don't forget to cover it. And once it's cured, we actually get the bead core that we can use, just like we did with the pen blank. And these are easy to cut. Just use your blade to cut them to whatever size that you want, and you can see that those look pretty good. I want to thank you for joining me for part 1 of the polymer clay tassel pendant. Let's move on to part 2, making the tassel.